Good morning. Good morning, Sonoma County Alliance. Thank you for coming. We have another fantastic pop-up panel today. My name is Janet Connors, and I am your 2023 president. Before we begin, I'd like to ask Katie Dillwood if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Katie. In honor of original indigenous inhabitants, I share the following land acknowledgement. As persons living in Sonoma County and with gratitude, we recognize that we are on ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok, Pomo, and Wapo, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining relationships on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. Thank you. And then before I turn the mic over to Ty for her report, I have some announcements and updates. I'd like to, of course, thank John Mills and Alejandro, Sound Ideas, for their videos and their six-pack of beer for our guests. I want to also thank our sustaining members and our guests today. And I would also like to thank all of our committee chairs and our committee members for their additional support of the Sonoma County Alliance. And then finally, I want to let you know that Ty Moody will be taking a maternity leave for the next 6 to 8 weeks. All right. Woo! Please continue to utilize her email address as she has instructions, of course, very intricate and detailed instructions on there for who you can contact in her absence. We are excited, Ty, for you, Patrick, and your new baby. And if you'll come up here for your report, it is my pleasure to present to you a gift and card from the board on behalf of the membership.
Thank you guys. I don't expect to be gone for 8 weeks. I imagine I'll be back sooner than that because I just love the work, so I'll see you soon. I have a foster kid, I've done this, right?
First child.
All right, so I wanted to start with, as we wrap up 2023, I want to thank you guys for a great year. We got so much done this year and it wouldn't have happened without you guys, especially our committees. I'm so proud to share that we've raised over $35,000 to help support things like keeping crime off the streets, youth literacy, to support small businesses in Sonoma County. And this is just a small amount of work from 3 committees. Our water committee, our environmental committee have been on the forefront of making sure that we are a part of the conversation when it comes to water supply. We've had programs, high impact programs, every month thanks to our programs committee. Membership has revived our Business Phase events and so much more. So if you are interested in joining a committee next year, now's the time. Be a part of the work, be a part of the change. We have all of our committee chairs' contacts on our website, so you could reach out to them directly and hop on. We would love to have your voice on those committees. So please consider joining. Our pre-program registration is now open. There's a link on your tables on the program there. You could purchase the pre-program. That's a lower rate to get the full year for 2024. And then you just walk in the door and your name tag will be there. It's super easy. Deadline is March, so make sure to get that now. If you have some credits left from this year because you registered in June, we'll prorate it. So just let me know via email and we'll get that done. And then Janet, let you know that I'll be on maternity leave, so definitely use my email. There's instructions on who to contact for what, and I'll see you guys soon. an advocacy group. That's what we're founded on. It's what we do. Be a part of it. Bring people in. We can make better decisions with your voice at the table. So if you're not a member, consider joining. If you have someone that would be a great fit, bring them in. It's important that we grow and we make awesome decisions for an awesome place to live. And then Janet is going to help me. If she walks by your table, please stand up and give us your name and your business or organization. And if you are a guest, please put your card in the bucket so we can raffle off some of our prizes this morning.
Danny Sheehan, Friends of Smart. Good morning.
I'm Chris Miscalini with Comerica Bank.
Good morning, Nick Menendez, Pacific Advisors.
Keith Christopherson and my guest, Brenda Christopherson.
Brenda Christopherson and my guest, Keith Christopherson.
Gary Quackenbush, North Bay Business Journal.
Amy Bolton, Christopherson Builders.
Good morning, Linda Bones, Summit State Bank.
Tony Albernaz, retired past president.
Melissa Galliani, Wine Country Radio.
Sherry Granzato, Wine Country Radio.
Good morning, Kelly Ray, Wine Country Radio.
Kimberly Way, immediate past president for a few more weeks.
Good morning, Brett Shin, Providence, and I have a guest, Ms. Brianna E. Camden. She is the Chief HR Director for the Northern California service area.
Joe Gaffney, St. Vincent de Paul, and a member of the Environmental Committee. And my guest this morning is my wonderful wife, Stephanie Bodie.
Terrence Sanders, Santa Rosa Planning Commission.
Artie Dexter, Leduc Dexter, and Super Service Plumbing.
Yes, I'd like to introduce my guests, Brenda Christopherson and Keith Christopherson. Ross Liscombe, Real Estate Broker, Century 21 Epic.
Welcome, Keith and Brenda. This is a really good program we have here today. I'm glad you're able to attend as Ross's guest. Greg Hurd with BKF Engineers.
Howard Dalton, lots of things.
Good morning, Steve Burrow with Friends of Smart.
Carrie Chambers, Community First Credit Union.
Katie Dillwood, Christopherson Builders.
Rob Sanville, KLH Consulting, and I'm really pleased to introduce our newest account manager, Shadra Enos.
Shadra Ennis, just their pronunciation.
Jen Collini, Leap Solutions.
Brian Barrett, New York Life and Eagle Strategies.
Good morning, Dennis Harder, retired.
Scott Kincaid, Facility Development Company and Chairman of SCA.
Marlene Soyland, Soyland Management.
Brian Lang, Independent Real Estate Broker.
Good morning, Lisa Badenford, North Bay Association of Realtors, and pleased to introduce our well-known guest, Sheriff Eddie Ingram. Thanks for joining us.
First and foremost, I'm a friend of Frank Pipgrass and Gary Arabian with CBRE. Okay.
That's my guest. Frank Pipgrass, Commercial Real Estate.
Thanks, Frank. Good morning, Harley Rodriguez, Mid-State Construction.
Steve Click, Bauer Associates. Don Mills, Sound Ideas Media.
Ryan Kelly, WSI Smart Marketing. My guest is a financial advisor, my dear friend Christopher Garcia with Redwood Credit Union.
Justin Hunter, Holly Construction. Good morning, Scott Omrod, Leap Solutions Group.
Good morning, Brian Reed, Summit State Bank.
Good morning, Ken Frankie, Architect.
Rick Carlisle, BKF Engineers.
Taylin Knudsen, Common Ground Society. Larkin O'Leary, Common Ground Society.
Morning all, Claudia Vecchio, Sonoma County Tourism.
Roy Martinez, Exit Strategies Group and board member of Pep Housing.
Tony's Bisman, 707 Promotions.
Good morning, Drew Fagent, ZFA Structural Engineers.
Dan Condren, member of SCA GMM.
Good morning, Dick Dowd, past president and current co-chair of the water supply group with Marlene Soyland as the other co-chair.
Good morning, Paul Schwartz, Corcoran Icon Properties, Commercial Real Estate.
Good morning, Ryan Bucksbaum, Next One Staffing.
Good morning, Vineet Pillai from the Smith Dollar Law Firm.
Kevin Marks, CFA.
I'm Matia Peterson, also ZFM.
Chris Wilson with the Historic Railroad Square Association.
Bill Bolster, Electro-Optical Components.
Hi, Kevin Zuko, ZFA Structural Engineers.
Kurt Nichols, retired past president.
Mark Hale, Carlisle Macy.
Jason Lee, Sonoma County Office of Education.
Amy Carter, Sonoma County Superintendent of Schools.
Miguel Andrade Marin, Golden State Lumber, Santa Rosa.
Good morning, David Brown, Adobe Associates, Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors.
Lisa Wicke, Schaffner, North Coast Builders Exchange.
Kathy Goodacre, CTE Foundation.
Sandra Ormeratz, Sotheby's International Realty.
Good morning, Pete Lescure Engineers, and eagerly awaiting the first Transportation Committee meeting. And my guest this morning, Heather Thurber of Sonoma County Realty.
It's Redwood Empire Realty, very close.
Amy Haid, Haid Construction Management.
Trish Griffiths with the Personnel Perspective.
Good morning, Andre Moran with Bralty & Race, Consulting Engineers.
Good morning, William Billiter with BC Engineering Group, and I have two guests today from our office, Marcel Delagnes and Andrew Willis.
Hi, I'm Lynn Stanton. I'm with Emergency Prep Help, and I'm a guest today.
Jack Collins with the Progressive Tribal Alliance.
Thank you, everyone. And again, my name is Janet Connors, and I'm your 2023 president. And now we will do a drawing for the two lucky guests. One gets a 6-pack of delicious beer, and the other one gets a bottle of wine. Do you want to do a drawing? No? Okay. Thanks. The first one is Marcel Delagnes from BC Engineering. And the second one is Christopher Garcia. So Marcel, you get your pick because you got your pick. Okay.
Sorry about that, you're gonna get the wine.
Way to go, Chris.
So our program today is a 2023-2024 industry update. We have had probably 6 speakers. So I am grateful that we had Dick Dowd here to help us talk about Potter Valley this morning. Each table that has a number on it has one of our speakers, and they will pop up one at a time for 5 minutes to share with you insights from what 2023 held and what we can expect for 2024. So I want to welcome our speakers. We have Amy Christopherson Bolton. We have Brianna, can you say your last name? Candom. We have Brianna Candom. We have Brian Reed, Claudia. Vecchio, fabulous. And Tawny's not here, that's gonna be Dick Dowd. So thank you guys for coming. Big round of applause for our speakers. And let's get it going.
That's okay. Thank you very much for showcasing this talk about construction. And just for clarification, I'm really going to only be speaking about residential construction. I can't really speak much to commercial, but residential we know well. I wanted to kind of kick this off with a comment that I heard at a North Coast Builders Exchange meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, where we had a bunch of the Santa Rosa city leaders. We had the head of planning economic development, the chief building official, and the head of planning, so Jessica, Gabe, and Jesse. And Gabe said something which I thought was pretty salient. He said, we haven't had a normal housing cycle in 15 years. First the Great Recession, then the fires, then COVID, now all the affordable housing money from the state, which is distorting things. And he's right, the market's been in tremendous flux for a long time. It has not really stabilized. And now we have the highest interest rate in decades, which has also been, throwing a wrench into everything. So while the rates aren't historically high, the low rates for so long made higher priced housing more affordable. And so that was another distortion. And add to this burden, add to all these changes and variations that we're dealing with across the industry, we have cost of regulations. So as a result, our county is one of the least affordable places in the country to buy a house, which is insane. We're just Santa Rosa, we're just Sonoma County, that's least affordable in the country. And it's also weird as we simultaneously have this crosshatch layering of regulations at the state, federal, and local level. And so we're seeing where local jurisdictions trying to make it easier to build, the state on one arm is trying to make it easier to build, while on the other hand, they're throwing additional burdens in on you. So it's almost like they just can't make up their mind what they want to do. So for instance, we have 24 unit subdivision in Windsor. They're move-up homes. They're not big fancy things. They're on small lots. This little tiny subdivision has $675,000 in mitigation costs. On top of that, we have to be surveying for bats, pond turtles, a particular bee. We have 2 endangered flowers. There's some sort of a wetland-ish thing. And we have to have archaeological and paleontological monitors out there during construction. So, we have local governments who are trying, and the state trying to make things less expensive so people can afford to live here. On the other hand, there's all these crazy regulations in there. So it's just a very interesting time. 2023, I was asked, oh gosh, to speak to that. So it was a time when rising rates really stopped everything. Last summer, we had a whole bunch of home building contracts that everyone just froze. The whole market froze because interest rates started going up, and it just made customers, their loans were no longer penciling. They just couldn't afford it anymore. So projects that were under development projects underwritten at a 5% mortgage rate or a 5% financing rate with the bank. Now we're looking at 10% with private equity and a couple points for the broker on top of it. So it's really changed how development projects are penciling. That said, we do feel good about the market in this coming year for sure. As mentioned, the key is interest rates. Lenders are starting to price reductions that they're seeing coming down the pike. In interest rates, we've had people start to quote a little bit less than they were a couple months ago. Projects that are working at the 10% financing will then see an upside when the rates come back down. So that's a positive too. And there's still very little new detached residential construction. So we still feel bullish about, we know that there's attached going up all over town, but we still feel bullish about the single family detached because it's still very, very undersupplied. And I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing from local government staff in general, the recognition that we need housing. It's definitely a sea change mindset from what we saw just a few years ago. Finally, about the affordable side of things, you've seen them everywhere. As mentioned, there's tons of money coming down from the state. Don't know how that's going to really play out yet. But overall, I'm encouraged that we're going to start to see some new life in our downtown areas for all this housing, even as it's high density coming All the local businesses will benefit from it, we'll all benefit from it, and hopefully our region in general will see more of an economic driver than just tourism. Thank you.
Brianna, here you go. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't know there would be a timer, so this is exciting. Right. Again, I'm Brianna Ekandem, and I am here representing Providence. I lead human resources for the 6 hospitals in Northern California, spanning from Sonoma County, Napa, as well as Humboldt. And I'm really excited to be here representing Providence, and I'm new to the area, so I want to give that context that I'm coming from Portland, Oregon, and I was actually a small business owner in Portland, Oregon, in addition to my day job, where my husband and I ran a screen printing company. We haven't ventured out in Sonoma County, but I'm glad to be making the connection with this alliance and the work that's being done here. Well, to talk about my current job and all the challenges, I think our focus and what I've seen over the past 6 months is a laser focus on how we retain our employees, which we call caregivers. So if I say caregivers, that's why. And also, how do we recruit people to the area? As you just mentioned, the cost of housing is a challenge as we're recruiting people who are interested in our hospitals here, as well as trying to get people plugged in and connected to the community is an opportunity that we're seeing as well. So our focus as an organization has really been, how do we re-foster that human connection? As COVID happened and we had to do a lot of things virtual, that human touch, meeting in person, onboarding our employees at our facilities has been a challenge for us, and that's been a main focus because in our turnover data, we've seen our longer term employees staying where people who started in less than a year leave within that first year. So our key focus has been on our first year turnover and how do we really connect people to our mission and values as an organization to really make us distinguished from other organizations that are providing healthcare in the area. So that's been our key focus area. Another piece of that, and let me peruse my notes quickly. Another piece of that is that we're seeing our leaders really have to take on a lot of pieces of work that are outside of patient care. And that causes a lot of administrative burden where they are, in our systems, on computers, having meetings. And one of the things we're really focused on in 2024 is how do we leverage artificial intelligence to help support our leaders with scheduling, with responding to emails, with doing different things that is not their top of license with the work that they're doing. So we're bringing on new technology to support our leadership so they can really focus on patient care and also training and engaging the employees that they lead. Another piece that is exciting for us, being in the state of California and part of Providence Health System, we are a key driver to the success of our organization. So California represents the South Division of Providence, and our success really impacts the rest of the states and the organization. So we've recently restructured how we're doing business in the state of California. So now for Northern California, we have a chief executive that is going to lead all the counties in Northern California. His name is Gary Only. And we feel like that leadership here in Northern California will help us align our priorities within our facilities, as well as set the strategy for what we need to do in Northern California to support the outcomes of California and for Providence as a whole. So I'm really excited to be partnering with him, as well as being able to connect with, our Sonoma County hospitals in Petaluma, Hillsburg, and Santa Rosa. All right. Lastly, so there's the last component of my work, and that's employee engagement. And every year we do an engagement survey and we get a lot of great feedback from our employees on what we can do better, how we can improve. And we always have action plans that focus on that work. But sometimes it seems like there's a lot of energy at the beginning of the year and then it kind of trickles down as the year progresses. So one of the things that we're doing as an organization is shifting to more frequent check-ins. So instead of an annual survey, we'll have a quarterly survey where we're getting feedback and we're responding very quickly to our employees. So I'm just going to wrap up because I see my time is up. But thank you for the time, and again, I just want to say turnover and retention and engagement are key priorities.
Thank you very much. And now we have Brian Reed.
Thank you. I'm going to go up here so my back isn't to people. Thank you for having me, Janet, but had I known that beer was one of the prizes, I would have put my card in the bucket, just so you know for next time. So fortunately, the banking industry is very stable right now. Nothing's really going on, and everything's all good. I just want to go to the brief history so I give you a little background on what is going on, because it all really started in the pandemic when the economy really hit the skids, and the government decided we need to help and pump $9 trillion through various forms of stimulus and PPP into the system. And it was all with good intention, but like anything that's done rapidly that's very complicated, there were overdoses that occurred. And that overdose kind of manifested itself in $5 trillion extra dollars in the banking system for a period of time that all of us bankers thought was just going to go out the door, either for expenses or for other types of investments and savings. So that didn't happen because everybody retrenched, and so that $5 trillion stayed there until it helped cause the inflation that was occurring. The Feds felt that they needed to help fight inflation, so they drastically increased interest rates to put a crimp on that. What did that do? It completely changed customer and consumer behavior from norms. So we all got these statistics that we operate by, and you can just throw those statistics out the door, because when rates go from 0.25% to 5.25%, you start to think about, what are my alternatives? Everybody started to think about what are our alternatives. So then a lot of money started to leak. Well, two things happened first. With the rise in the interest rates, a lot of projects, like Amy was talking about, started not penciling out. We couldn't get things to provide an ROI, and that's whether it's a real estate investment, equipment investment to grow the business. The ROIs just didn't work, so we saw a real slowdown starting at the end of 2022 in things that were being invested in. But really then what happened is banks started retrenching too. So that all led into early 2023, and we all know what happened in early 2023 is we had some significant bank failures. And in and of themselves, those bank failures probably wouldn't have been a big deal, except that there were a lot of misses by regulators during that time that caused them to be publicly chastised. Just so you know, regulators do not like to be publicly chastised. And there's nothing in it for them not to take it out on somebody else. So, they do. And so, banks have been experiencing much more rigorous regulatory environments, and there's a lot of constraints being put on banks. And so what has the repercussion has been that banks' lending is constrained. So as we're here trying to pull out of this kind of tight economy, banks are kind of being constrained to be the force to help do that. And so the combination of the regulatory constraints and the liquidity leaving the banking industry, so I forgot to mention that. So that $5 trillion no longer in the banking industry. Part of it is. But a lot of that money left. People started investing in treasuries and other things. And it left the banking industry. So banks were, fat, dumb, and happy for a while there, and they were had a ton of liquidity on their balance sheets at no cost. Now all of a sudden, they don't have a ton of liquidity on their balance sheets, and it's at a higher cost. So the whole game kind of changed there, and those two things, that and the regulatory constraints, have really created a pullback by lenders. All right. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go into what does that mean for 2024? Again, we're going into it that way that lending is constrained, and that's going to put a crimp on activity in the economy. But there's more and more evidence that there's willingness by the feds to start rate reductions earlier and be more aggressive with them in 2024 than had been previously thought. Now, I wouldn't go to the bank with that one because they change their minds every month. There's some different information that comes out. But you can tell the mindset is, we know we're now harming the economy. We've got to do something different. And so far it seems like there's will to do that. So I think for 2024, we're going to see it start off really kind of slow, but probably build momentum through the year. And the cost of capital that Amy was talking about for projects and such will start to rationalize a bit more. But please understand that when rates go up, the loan rates don't go up in concert with how the rates go. They only go up about half of what the actual increase of the rates are. So they come down pretty slow too. So don't expect any nirvana from the banking industry, but it also won't be a complete constraint on the economy either, I believe. How did I do? Okay.
Thank you, John. And Claudia Vecchio on tourism.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see a bunch of familiar faces here this morning. Tourism Amy talked about the volatility in the construction industry. You all know we've had an incredibly volatile 6 years in tourism as well, between fires and floods and pandemics and everything else. We've been in crisis mode as an organization, certainly, and as a destination in many ways for the past 6 years. So good on all of us for being super resilient and keeping this industry that really is the lifeblood of Sonoma County going for 6 years. At the end of and through the pandemic, you all probably very familiar with this, Sonoma County didn't fare too poorly as a tourism destination. We were this place that was wide open. We happen to have been lucked into a brand that we created in 2018, that is Life Opens Up. And how more perfect is that during a pandemic when life was shut down? So through the pandemic, San Franciscans and people from urban areas came up to Sonoma County in droves, and you may have seen this. I mean, they went into vacation rentals where they weren't supposed to go, but people came to Sonoma County. So we puttered along during the pandemic, quite honestly, much better than many of our neighboring destinations, and certainly better than San Francisco. And as you all probably know and are aware, San Francisco continues to be challenged from a tourism standpoint. Groups are just not coming back into that place. There are social issues and other things happening in San Francisco that will now impact Sonoma County. It has and will continue to impact Sonoma County in a number of different ways. So coming out of the pandemic, though, Sonoma County was looking okay. 2022 happened to be a record year for Sonoma County. $2.3 billion to the economy and visitor spending, and our industry was putzing along pretty well. The retailers were doing well, restaurants were doing pretty well, and our hotels were doing incredibly well because of the rise in the rate of a hotel. I mean, lots of you have probably been traveling and you're like, what the heck? It's a $500 Hampton Inn. But that's kind of what's happening in the industry right now. So 2022, record year. We came out of that year, Sonoma County Tourism is funded through a performance system. We get a percentage of transient occupancy tax and a percentage of an assessment called a business improvement area. So we were doing well. We went into the pandemic with about an $8 million budget. We came out of the pandemic with about a $12 million budget. So what that allowed us to do in 2023 was to do some pretty big projects. You all may be familiar with the fact that we brought the third hour of the Today Show to Sonoma County in April. That was a high dollar cost, but it was an important one. It was a chance for us to really get a national stage on Sonoma County. What's happened though in 2023 has been, boy, has it been a tale of two cities. We started out, if you all remember, back in beginning of 2023 with terrible weather. Rain after rain after rain after rain. And it's amazing how that impacts people's decision to come up to Sonoma County. So we were really pummeled during that time. And then in the springtime, all that you're hearing about with this financial situation, that impacts people's ability to spend or their desire to spend discretionary income. And so it really impacted Sonoma County and our tourism industry. Throughout the rest of the summer, we were down somewhere between 20 and 25% year over year. It's a dangerous comparison because we had such a strong year in 2022, but lots of you probably heard from your wineries and restaurants and retailer friends and even those in the hotel industry that said, where is everybody? So we're really working very hard now to figure out why people are not coming to Sonoma County. We have a number of assumptions. One of them is that everybody went on an international trip. How many of you traveled overseas this year? Everybody was in Europe. The second is San Francisco's woes. The third is this general economy. The fourth is what's happening in the wine industry. I mean, how is the change of the experience in the wine industry impacting travel? And the fifth is we're going to test our messaging to see if our messaging is right. We're doing a non-visitor study right now, which is a kind of an innovative way for us to look and see why people aren't coming to Sonoma County. So 2023 has been a tough year. We have to really look at a lot of different impacts to the industry. The one thing we did do in 2023 was to launch our master plan, and some of you are involved with this. This is a 10-year look into the future. And so I have a copy of this, and if anybody else wants that, I'm happy to share that with you. 2024 is anybody's guess, quite honestly. All of these impacts are going to impact tourism, and we're going to continue as an organization to really look at how we can be super surgical and super compelling with the messages to come to Sonoma County. So more to come on all that, but it's been a heck of a 6-year run. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. And now Dick Dowd has volunteered to step in to talk about water.
Thank you, Janet. Good morning. As I introduced myself this morning, I said I was the co-chairman of the Water Supply Committee of the Sonoma County Alliance. We've been meeting for about 2 years. Membership of that committee is 12 to 15 people, all with some expertise in water supply, etc. Historically, our region for water supply really includes about 5 counties, Marin, Sonoma, Mendocino, Lake, and to some extent Humboldt County. And our way of operation to supply water to our retail and commercial customers has been, when it rains, catch it, put it in behind dams, and then during the drier part of the year, feed it into the Russian River and Eel River to supply the water. That game has reached a practical conclusion. We are not getting enough rain, probably very much due to climate change, so our water supply is in jeopardy. The 2 years that our Water Supply Committee has been operating, we've been having meetings with Sonoma Water, the Sonoma County Water Agency, and also with the City of Santa Rosa and others who are trying to find ways that they can provide water throughout the year. And it's going to be quite a challenge, there's no question about it. PG&E is closing, has already petitioned to close down the hydro feeding system that picks water up in the Eel River and puts it into the upper Russian River to help our supply. And that's going to stop. There's now plans in place to see if there's things that we can do. Potter Valley is an area that's totally dependent upon the water coming in to Lake Mendocino and into the Van Arsdale, behind the Van Arsdale Dam as well. And that's a disastrous situation for those agricultural interests that are in that area, and there's extensively large in that area. And then if you look at the water supply that comes down out of Potter Valley into the upper Russian River, Cloverdale's water supply is fed by that, as is Healdsburg. There's some movement made by those two communities and the agricultural areas between them to supply water from other sources, but it's very difficult. And what you now see in the government agencies, whether it's Santa Rosa or North Marin or Marin, is that we've got to find a way to capture water when it is raining and save it for when it's not raining. And that's what's in place. The real shocking thing about it is we met with the city of Santa Rosa, and they're looking at aquifer storage and recovery, pumping it into the ground, into the aquifers, and then pulling it out when it's needed after the rainy season has ended. The big thing about it is that one of those programs, the aquifer storage and recovery for the city of Santa Rosa, is got a price tag on it of $600 million. That has got to be paid for by someone, and the game plan at this point from Sonoma Water and the Mendocino Water and Power Commission, who we're also working with, is to find federal and state assistance grants to help take the burden off the customers in the region. And that's what you're going to be seeing. It'll be in the paper if you go to council meetings from time to time, or the Board of Supervisors. They're working on those kind of things. And probably the first of 2024, we're going to really see some actions being taken to put some of these programs in place. So pay attention, because it's got a big price tag with it, okay?
Thank you, Dick. We have quite a bit of time for questions, and the questions open for any of the speakers. So does anybody have a question? Who's your question for, Joe?
Yeah, for Amy, you mentioned the 24-lot subdivision in Windsor, which had $650,000 in mitigation costs, which works out to about $30,000 a lot. In your opinion, how much of that mitigation cost was bona fide mitigation issues, and how much of it was in response to the NIMBYs who wanted to kill the project?
So I have to say, we got involved in the project at the entitlement stage, and it's actually probably more like $1 million if you total up all of the civil engineering and environmental studies and the monitoring that has to happen for it. So you're right, that's a significant burden on those homeowners. But these are pretty much regulation driven. It wasn't NIMBYs. Yeah, and that's what I was saying, is the crosswork, right? On one hand, they're trying to make it easier to build, on the other hand, throwing more regulations on you.
Anybody else? Terry? Who's your question for? Oh.
Stand back up. Hi, Amy, it's good to see you. So we have a lot of high-density housing projects in the works right now. I'm curious to know your thought process about how that affects the values of single-family homes in Santa Rosa particularly, since that's what I care about most.
Yeah, I don't see it affecting it a lot. I think that your buyer in downtown you have all these great luxury attached units, right, coming online. I think that buyer is going to probably be different than the single family detached. I think that overall there is, supply and demand economics, they're linked. So there might be, some level of overall housing cost decrease as more units come online, which is a good thing, right, for everybody who wants to live here and everyone who is living here. But I think in general, and Brenda, do you disagree? Have the buyer profiles different? She knows everything about, yeah. Yeah.
She's my guest.
Lisa, who do you have a question for?
Maybe all of them. It struck me, and I'm sitting here next, of course, to Kathy Goodacre. So the two of us were like, all of your industries, and you addressed it a little bit in healthcare, but the other piece is workforce. I can't imagine that every single industry that just spoke that's another layer to what's happening. So what is happening in the workforce? What are you seeing? I don't know. How do you bring people in healthcare? I guess I'll direct it to you. I know how we bring people in construction because I do it. So.
Oh, that's a great question. One of the things that we're seeing is people want different things out of their work, and flexibility has been the primary driver that we're seeing in healthcare. There are people that are retiring earlier than they planned, and what we're launching is a ambassador program, which will allow people who are thinking about retiring but still want to have that connection to the hospital, work some hours and do different types of work outside of bedside care to still be connected and support our newer employees. So as I mentioned earlier, our newer employees aren't as invested, as connected. So we're hoping that if we pair them with someone who has been around for a while as a mentor, ambassador, that bridging that will help us retain some of our new caregivers.
We have a question back here. Who's your question for? For Brianna.
Or whoever. So I'm just curious also, generally speaking, about the healthcare industry in Sonoma County, how we're doing in terms of access to medical services in Sonoma County. I've heard many stories from employees about finding a primary care physician or this or that service, or having to go to San Francisco for particular services. So anything you have to add about that?
That's a really great question, and one of the big questions that we're focused on. Access even for our own employees can be a challenge, and we've heard that from community members too. So what I was touching on earlier is we recently restructured our leadership team, where we have a chief executive that will be focused and leading each of the hospitals in Northern California. So our plan is to better coordinate and assess what the access availability is, and really look at all of our hospitals as a community of hospitals within the area, and how can we direct people appropriately based on what their needs are. So there's a lot of review and attention that's focused on that work, and I'm positive and hopeful that in 2024 we'll be able to communicate more specifically what those plans are, but that's really part of why the restructuring happened, to get more focus and alignment on that.
Brian Ling, who's your question for?
It's really for Brianna and Amy, but I'm going to maybe even turn it to Brian, because you have more overall business, and the subject is insurance. State of Cal, I've talked to a couple insurance brokers across multi-states, and the example of how bad California is versus everywhere else on insurance, it's impacting more and more businesses. So you have a wide variety. Let's assume a year from now insurance has not gotten better and more insurers have left California. How much is it going to impact our local economy and some of these segments that we've talked about today?
I don't know if I'm an expert on insurance, but I'm pretty good with economy, and when you have supply constrained, that usually means price goes up. And when price goes up of a service that doesn't add value to a property, it detracts from value to the property because it's an expense. You could have value declines in the property, and that's kind of how I look at it until the situation gets solved. And this is both for homeowners as well as for commercial real estate. You know, now that, I mean, probably a lot of people in this room have experienced it firsthand on properties that they're on, where you can't get insurance or the insurance jumps up dramatically. So you can only imagine what that does to value long-term if that doesn't get solved. And my understanding from insurance experts, people in the industry, is that there are things being worked on feverishly to resolve that situation, because they understand that could really undermine the economy in California. Well, that was a downer.
Who is your question for? For Brianna, hi again. Do you have any secret tips we can give to our employees for finding a new primary care physician? I made a call, I think, last year to try to change who an employee was going to, and they said, we have no one, and we'll have no one for 6 months. Yeah, well, no, tell us, give us some tips and tricks if you have any.
You know, I really don't have any to share that, I'm hearing the same thing that you're hearing, and I'm hoping that we can share some new information, but I just know as someone who recently moved here, I'm having the same struggle personally. I know it is a priority and a focus, but I don't have a secret backdoor path that I could advise on, but I would say be persistent and make sure that you're looking at ideally Providence and all the facilities that we run. But great question.
Paul, who is your question for?
Brianna on the hot seat. And this is, so one of the key issues, of course, in our community is homelessness, and the hospitals are all impacted by that in a big way. How is Providence, being a non-public entity, participating in the delivery of healthcare and maybe supporting methods by which we can help offset this, this challenge we face? And I know I'm particularly focused on, the public hospital being a big player in that game, because they and others are absorbing the biggest, burden for care for homeless.
Yeah, so Providence, our mission and focus is to support the poor and vulnerable. So we are a big supporter and recipient of those houseless residents in Sonoma County, and we see that on a regular basis in our emergency room when we're full and we're trying to care for patients and prioritize the needs of our homeless population. I know one thing I'm particularly excited about is behavioral health in this area, because our new leader that I've mentioned a couple times, he led a couple hospitals in Southern California and was able to implement some specific behavioral health initiatives, particular beds that are set aside for people who need to be either confined or have special isolated support, and implement that in the hospitals that he led. And I feel like that's a big need in Sonoma County, and I'm hoping that with his expertise and background, we can look at how we leverage that in our community to make sure we're not only taking care of the emergent need, but the whole person. So we definitely want to make sure when those situations are happening that we're caring for the houseless, and that is one of the priorities, and that's what occurs, and I'm sure you can co-sign for me on that. Oh yeah, thank you for the layup. So what he just mentioned is our focus on our community health investment. So in addition to caring for the patients, we invest millions of dollars into the community to support initiatives that protect the houseless. So yeah, and I think that would be a great guest to have here on in the future, our community health investment leaders.
Sheriff Eddie, who is your question for?
So, trust me, I know where you've been. Trust me. So a little bit to follow up on that. Unfortunately, the county jail is the largest mental health provider here in the county. Right now, I have about 350 inmates incarcerated who have mental health issues. So maybe not just Providence, but sort of the medical industry overall. Where do you see things moving forward with that inpatient and outpatient treatment? So we don't have the homeless issues or the people who are incarcerated, and that's where they're receiving their mental health treatment. And to be quite honest, it's minimal because we're not a mental health facility, we're a jail.
That's a great big question, and I go to, we have to support the whole person, and someone may make a decision to be houseless intentionally, and we have to meet them where they are. So we need to provide them with services, but I think the housing aspect of it, if that is something that they are exploring, making sure that they have access to the services in a shelter facility or really meeting people where they are. We focused on some mobile healthcare options for people, and that might address some of the needs, but I really think it's a bigger conversation that should happen in partnership probably with you and the county on how do we connect those dots, not only with Providence, but with all the health systems in the area, because it's not a one entity, one organization problem. It's something that we need to support as a community, and I personally don't have the answer, but I think that's the right direction that we need to go.
So Brian Barrett, and then Terry Thomas. Who's your question for?
You already know. Sorry. Brianna. Sorry to put you on the spotlight again. I work a lot with travel nurses, registered nurses, specifically that group. And this is not a Providence issue. It's every single hospital in California has faced travel nurses being a major part of their staffing, or rather understaffing, the last 3 years. When we have, we've all known about the issue of we have residents leaving California in droves, but we have very few coming in. Travel nurses are one of the very few groups that come and tend to stay, especially if they like the area. Have you seen, or could you speak on how many have come, you've hired temporarily with contracts and have chosen to stay, or if you have chosen to hire, or have there been issues with retaining that specific group? That's my question, thank you.
Yeah, we've really had a focused effort, and we were just chatting about this. We've been able to convert the majority of our travelers to stay full time. I support multiple hospitals, so I don't have the statistics offhand, but our ideal situation is that we're employing directly the caregivers that are supporting our patients, and that is something that we have conversations with those travel nurses about. What would it take for you to stay here? Are you liking the area? How can we get you connected to the community? Because I think what I've seen, travelers come from all over and they really like this area, but they have those questions of, where do I live? Where do I send my kids to school? So really thinking about how we leverage our local staff to make those connections and really partner with those people who may be interested but on the fence. So we've looked at our travelers, we've looked at people who have stayed for a long period of time to see if we can make the switch. But I know through COVID, we really leveraged travelers quite a bit, and we've seen a drastic decline in that over the past few months. So we're being able to retain people and convert people.
Terry Sanders and then Howard Dalton. Terry, your question is for?
You may as well go on up to the podium. Yeah. It's a mark. A really quick question. In an effort to, I like what you're saying about treating the whole person, but I'm curious, who pays the whole bill? And as more and more people who need that whole person care come into the, into our area, does that affect this young woman's? Is that affecting this young woman's ability to get a primary physician change, or the inability of this person to get a physician change? How does that all work?
Yeah, I'm gonna invite, your point, the CE on some of these topics. So to recap your question, in treating the whole person, are we neglecting other people in the community, or how would you?
Purposely, but
Yeah.
does that affect, Providence's ability to deliver patient care to the whole community of people while we're trying to help treat the whole person
Yeah.
unsheltered?
Got it. No, that's a great question. It does have an impact. We only have so many beds, so many physicians, and as people present themselves, we take care of the most emergent needs. And I think the other piece of that is, as much as we can get people to take care of their preventative healthcare needs on the front end and encourage that part of the process, that helps downstream, so that they're not having a heart attack, they're checking what their, I'm not a clinician, so I won't go into any of the health details, but we're trying to get people in the pipeline prior to that drastic situation where they need to present themselves to the ER. But again, your question is part of a bigger, broader question on how do we get everybody the care that they need, and the cost of healthcare is a big component of that. And that landscape of how we bill, how we charge, how our health plans charge is another big aspect of that that we're seeing and trying to give some more focused attention to. So I don't know if that answers your question entirely, Terry, but it's a problem for us, just like it is for the community that we're really interested in trying to find some solutions to address it. Yeah.
Howard Dalton, who is your question for?
Not. I'm giving you a break. That's it. Thank you for all your good information. For the Tourist Bureau, if you would. Claudia, if I was to open the book that you illustrated there and showed us for your plan for the next 10 years?
Yes.
Okay. What are the top 1, 2, or 3 focus points within that plan for the tourist industry?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We have 5 key imperatives that we provide through this next 10 years. Probably the most visible one is the one around strengthening the economy. And of that, the stories that you may have been seeing is about building a convention center and working with counties and cities and others to build a facility that really does help balance our tourism industry throughout the year and bring in the business traveler. So that's probably the most visible. But we also talk about the built environment, the experiential environment. We are certainly, along with the construction industry, looking at how we continue to support our hotel industry and our lodging industry. And that's with the right type of lodging properties that will bring that type of customer we want into Sonoma County. We also talk about acknowledging our culture and working more closely with various cultures throughout Sonoma County, including our indigenous population, and making Sonoma County more accessible for travelers with accessibility needs. But there are those 5 initiatives, and they do cover kind of the swath of Sonoma County and what we want to achieve. Most notably, as an organization, we are very interested in making sure Sonoma County is protected and preserved for generations to come. So we talk a lot about sustainable travel and responsible travel and ensuring that people come here and respect this place. So those are kind of, when we look at our 5 imperatives, certainly the convention center rises to the top in visibility, but there are other ones in there. Again, happy to share that with everyone.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question for Nick, actually. Can you talk a little bit about how the Potter Valley project impacts local businesses and residents on a general level?
Well, if you're a customer of any of the water suppliers that I kind of briefly alluded to, watch your bill. Because without federal grant money and state grant money, there's going to be a serious impact to your water and sewer bill. It's there. And just this organization, the Alliance, and each of you as members need to be watching what happens in your own area and keep us informed so that we can go and make some pitch to whether it's the city of Santa Rosa, County of Sonoma, Marin County, whatever. That's what we'll have to be doing. And the history of the Sonoma County Alliance, if you don't know it, it was formed to be supportive of, then it was called the Sonoma County Water Agency, building Warm Springs Dam. And we helped push that into being. And now we're in a place where we're going to have to be supportive of some of these things that various agencies are going to want to include, but then we've got to watch the ticket price. That's what it's all about.
Any other questions, everybody, or anybody for Brianna? Thank you all. I really want to thank our pop-up speakers. I would like to also thank our elected officials, Sheriff Eddie Ingram and Superintendent Amy Carter. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Next month, on January 3rd, we will have another impactful GMM with Rob Eiler from Sonoma State talking about the 2024 economy. I just saw his presentation at the Wine Expo last week, and it is data-packed and very compelling. So I encourage all of you to come. Thank you all for coming. If you are a guest, I encourage you to join the Sonoma County Alliance. The Sonoma County Alliance is a business advocacy organization. Our strength is our voice, and our voice is our membership. Please join Sonoma County Alliance and contribute your voice. Thank you. Have a fantastic day, and Merry Christmas. And please, for the speakers, if you would come up here because we want to have a photo taken. Thank you. Happy holidays.
You